Hello and welcome. Welcome to Wildtail Creative Design. In this video I will show you what I got on John Pay auction webpage. I was browsing for a while. I got slightly addicted to the page anyway. In one of the random categories I came across this record number 8 hand plane and I thought, bloody hell, I need to get one. Anyway, including all their fees, I paid 68 quid for it, and on top of it I had to pay £12 for delivery. Overall, happy days. Anyway, I started unpacking this one and take it to smaller pieces just to inspect and see what's what. As you can see, it's not in a pristine condition, but it's all functional and there is nothing broken, nothing snapped. And I thought I don't want to go through the whole restoration process. I just want to make it all functional and maintain as much as possible of the character and the fact that it is, I don't know, 60, 80-year-old plane. So I thought, let's give it a proper once over in terms of functionality. As you can see, there is a bit of an issue. The sole is not flat, and that will be the main topic of the video. I will be going there and back for hours. Foolishly, I started with grid 180, thinking, oh, after maybe 10-20 minutes it will be all sorted and it will be good to go. I have to say that I was quite wrong. It took me, I think, around 3 to 4 hours of using this grid 180, and probably after hour or so I noticed that there is very little change, and gradually I went to 120, 80, and then when I was really frustrated I went down to even grid 60 to get it flat. And as you can see on the 180 grid I used plenty of WD-40 in theory to keep the whole thing nicely lubricated and potentially introduce a little bit less moisture. So you can see quite a few marks in terms of the sheen in the middle of the sole, and the middle section is getting nicer and nicer. However, top part and the bottom section is still not even scratched or touched, and in this part I moved to grid 120, hoping that 120 will resolve the problem. Again, I was quite wrong. It took me another I don't know how many hours of going there and back with this grid, and then I decided enough is enough, moved on again to grid 80 and then 60. As you can hopefully see in the video, the middle section is getting quite nice, as you can see at the top left corner, but the rest is still, let's say, lacking quite substantially. At that point I was just fed up with lapping the sole of the planes and just thought, let's change something, and I just focused for another while sharpening the blades of the little Stanley hand plane. So I used this lovely Chinese made, I think I bought it on AliExpress jig, but I have to say it is quite reliable, quite good, quite easy to set up correct angle, and the wheels are half decent. All I had to do so far is just to lubricate them with a little bit of WD-40. As you can see, the sole of the little Stanley was absolutely piss poor in terms of the fabrication quality of machining, and after probably 20 minutes or so of lapping the sole, I started to get some nice improvements, which is really encouraging. And at that point, I moved to grid 80. Probably I should have done this earlier. I know it's a recurring theme. I should have done that move way earlier. Top and bottom part of the sole is still lacking progress. As you can see now, the middle section is nice and shiny, but the remaining parts are still, let's say, dull. However, the very front end and the last few millimeters of the back are quite nice. And at that point I moved to grid 60 and finally made some progress, especially with the little Stanley. So I started on this one, and it was, let's say, quite satisfying to observe how quickly and quite easy it was to lap the sole. Usually I was doing 100 strokes each way, 100 the other way, and so on and so on. And I have to say it took me a few days to do this because I was just so fed up with the process. Would I repeat it? Hopefully I won't have to on those two. And as you can see, now it is the final stage of grid 60 on the little Stanley. I don't want to go anymore with it, just to not to make it any thinner. As you can see, high quality sticker. No, it's not high quality. And absolutely terrible fabrication of the parts. The cup is absolutely caked in paint, and it was high time just to get rid of it. And I just thought, by the time I strip the whole plane, let's sand it off and make it as good as I potentially can, just to maintain good contact between the cup and the iron. So the steel grade is very mild, and it was very easy to sand it. And now I'm finally progressing back to grid 120 and just decided enough is enough. I think that level of precision is more than enough for what I will need in the future. So I decided at that time, after spending endless number of hours on lapping the sole, keep it as it is and just move on. So that is, let's say, final-ish result of the little Stanley. Yes, I can still see plenty of scratches and some machine marks, but again, it is way better than it was, and I don't think it was worth investing even more time from my perspective. Now it is time to round the edges, remove all the dinks and imperfections in the corners of both soles, and that was a really easy and satisfying process. The little plane, again, is probably made out of cheese, not steel, because it was very easy to round the corners, and happy days, job done. At that point I decided to take the whole thing apart and just clean it and leave it in terms of the finish as it is. I just wanted to make it functional, not a showpiece. So you can see that the cup iron is just caked and filthy, so it is time to unscrew the lever cap and just tidy it up. And initially I thought that there would be very little work needed. However, I quickly realized that there is quite a substantial gap between iron and the cup iron. At that stage I'm just lubricating the lever cap just to make it a little bit nicer in terms of the operation, and it's quite nice to see this old part still performing as it should. I don't want to buff it much more, I just like a little bit of a patina. However, as you can see, the underside of the lever cap was poorly fabricated and was not actually pressing on the iron on the full width. So gently I just try to sand it off and again make it as good as I potentially could. I don't want to push it even more because then I would lose that little leap, and I just left it as it is. Again, better than it was a few weeks ago. And now it is time to tidy up a couple of screws. Again, I don't want to polish them, I just want to leave them as they are. Oh, that's the bit that I mentioned earlier, that you can see a gap between the iron and the cap iron, so that they are not having a nice contact surface. So again, a little bit of sanding solved the issue. Usually in between grids I like to use the marker just to see progress, if actually I'm taking correct pressure on both sides. And yeah, it was quite a simple process, and overall I'm happy with the result. So it is now flat, and it's time to move on to sharpen the main iron. I think I started with sandpaper grit 320, and the blade was in a really good shape, so it did not require a lot of work. All I need to do is just slightly lubricate the little wheels to make them spin easier. And again, I switched to the little blade from Stanley, and this one is again made out of way milder steel grade, so that it was much quicker and easier to sharpen it. Then I went through grid 400, 800 and 1000, and that was a really easy process. It just took a couple of minutes to get it sorted, so that was quite nice for a change. That sharpening process was really easy. And I learned from my previous experience that you have to go higher than a grid 1000 to achieve a nice finish. So I used my sandpaper grid 1200, 1500, 2000, 2500 and up to 3000. I still don't have a leather strop to finalize and make the final touches. Now, in the future, if I will have a chance to upgrade my sharpening stones, I will try to buy something slightly wider. It will be easier. Oh, and in the meantime, I managed to slice and cut through my finger, which is a little bit annoying, with plenty of WD-40 getting into the wound. And the only type of the compound I could find in terms of the polishing compound was this product that I used in the past on resin river tables. So I just used a piece of paper and just sharpen the final tip with this one, and I'm really happy. It is first time that I managed to sharpen the blades to cut through paper, so I'm really happy and pleased with this one. Then I followed the same process with the little blade for the Stanley, and yeah, it did cut through the paper. To be fair, the paper is quite damp. It's in my shed and it's not as crisp as it would be from the house. At the time of recording this video, I have 97 subscribers. So if you could kindly subscribe to my channel, that would be smashing. You would be more than 1%. That would be really nice. Anyway, I realized that the main knob is slightly loose, and I tried to tighten it up, which didn't really work. Then I thought I would just add a washer underneath the nut. However, this was not the best solution because it was still protruding, so the knob nut was just slightly proud of the wood and was just uncomfortable, not acceptable. So I had to remove the washer, and somehow in a slightly different orientation the nut managed to get into the wood, and yeah, it managed to secure it properly. Now it's time to remove the frog and just tidy it up. As you can see, it is quite filthy and it just needed a little bit of TLC. So I removed all the nuts, and again a little bit of tidying up with a piece of cloth, and they are like new. And this nut was not operating properly, so the adjusting nut was quite notchy, and a little bit of WD-40 later on and cleaning the threads just solved the problem, which is quite nice and satisfying. I think it is the first time that it has been taken to pieces for cleaning. The main plain handle was, and still is, in a good shape, and I didn't have to do anything to it. Actually, I prefer to leave it as it is because there is a sticker that is already half worn, but it just adds a little bit of patina to the hand plane, so I just left it as it is. And the nut, nice and shiny. However, the frog, you can see on the left hand side, is really badly manufactured, poorly fabricated, so I just gave it a little bit of a sanding just to smooth it out. I didn't have any good compound or a product to sand off the contact surface between the frog and the sole, so I just try to scrape off as much as the grain from the sandpaper and mix it up with my polishing compound and mix it up together and used it as a sanding surface in between the main sole. So those contact points were really rough and the contact were not amazing, so I just took my time, and as you can see, it's not a huge motion, but it just created a better connection between frog and the sole. So I'm not sure if it was a huge improvement or not, but I'm happy that I did it. Now, what a plonker. I thought that we will be able to tidy up the mouth. However, my flat file was too big to get in, so I just left it. To be fair, it was absolutely fine, so no harm there, but for completeness I just thought I would just tidy it up. And it's time to assemble the little Stanley. As you can see, it is adjustable by two nuts, left and right hand side, and this lever cap holds it in place. So nothing too fancy, but it did the trick. So I just retracted the blade as a starting point before actually trying to adjust it for planing. Finally, it's time to assemble the big boy record number 8, and I have never done this in the past, so it took me a little bit of time, a little bit of WD-40 to lubricate all the threads, and in the grand scheme it's not a very complicated tool, so it took me probably 10-15 minutes just to put it all back together, and it's quite nice to see how all the components fits nicely together. And the frog is resting nicer on the sole. There is no play, and the main knob to adjust the adjusting nut is moving freely, and it's just satisfying just to play with it. And now it's time to put together iron, and again it just took me probably a couple of minutes just to align it properly. This was slightly more time-consuming process just to ensure that all the nuts are properly tightened up, but not too tight so that you cannot adjust the depth of the blade. So I don't have experience with it, so it took me a few trials and errors. And that's how much sanding paper I used in the process. I think overall I used maybe 12, 16 meters of various sandpapers. And it's time to move on to the trial, which is really nice. So I started with the blade fully retracted, and very slowly I moved the blade out, and I have never had that kind of shavings, so it was really satisfying. At that point I realized, to be fair, I did know about it in the past, that I need to build a proper workbench so that it will be more rigid and it won't flex as much as this one. But that's the next project on my list. However, today I made an inquiry in terms of the oak boards, and just for the top I got a quote from a local supplier, 100 quid per board, 4.2 meter long, 27 millimeter thick, 350 millimeter wide. And in reality I would need at least 10 boards from that supplier, so that would be £1,000. So I need to find a different supplier in UK. Going back to the plane, it's really satisfying just to see really long shavings, and yeah, I love it. Finally, it is my first plane that I enjoy using, which is nice for a change. And the little Stanley is performing way better than it was a few weeks ago. However, all the shavings are still not perfect. I think there is a little bit of vibration in the blade, but it's performing probably 10 times better than it was in the past, so I'm happy with it. It's not the best tool, but it's better than it was. Anyway, thank you for watching and see you next time.